Alright guys, so last week we learned how to upload files to AWS S3 Bucket using AWS SDK version 2. But as you might already know, AWS is going to discontinue this AWS SDK version 2 by the end of next year. So we cannot use that anymore after that. But AWS has released a newer SDK which is version 3. So in this video, we're going to learn how to upload, how to view, or how to delete files on AWS S3 Bucket using AWS SDK version 3. Sounds good? So let's get started. Alright guys, let me quickly walk you through the project. We have a simple Node.js REST API written with TypeScript, and as you can see, we have our source folder in our project, and here we have few folders. We have config folder which injects all the environment variables to our project, and then we have our controllers. Currently we have only one controller, which is image controller, and there we have just two functions, upload image function and view image function. So these are the functions that we use to connect to routes. I mean, these are just request handlers. So inside that, let me open it up, and as you can see, we have another function that does all the upload under the hood. So we have to pass the file and also the bucket name to this function as arguments. So that's upload function, and we have another request handler called view file. Let me open it up. The special thing about this function is since all the objects inside our S3 bucket are private, what we do here is to view a file, we generate a presigned URL. A presigned URL is a temporary URL that contains all the authentication details in a query string, so that the person who has the URL can access that particular file on S3 bucket for a shorter period of time. So this is our function that generates a presigned URL, and here we have to pass the file name and also the bucket name as well. Alright, so let me quickly show you those functions. And here our routes file, nothing special in that, just few routes to access those request handlers, and inside our utils folder we have these reusable functions. So to upload files to S3 bucket, we have this function, and as you can see, we are using AWS SDK. So like I said earlier, what we are using here is AWS S3 version 2. So today what we are going to do is we're going to update this function with AWS S3 version 3 SDK. And here also we have AWS S3 version 2 to generate presigned URL, and we're gonna replace this as well with version 3. Let me open up our package.json file. As you can see, we are using AWS SDK version 2. Alright, so let's start updating our functions with version 3. First of all, let me open up the terminal. Let's install AWS SDK version 3. So here we have to install two packages. npm install at aws-sdk / client-s3. This is the first package, and to generate the presigned URL, we have to install another package, which is AWS SDK / S3 request presigner. Alright, so these two packages will be installed, and then we can work on our function after that. Alright, so the packages are installed. Let me quickly review my package.json file. And as you can see, we have our 2 packages installed. By the way, let's uninstall our older AWS version 2 package, version 2 SDK, npm uninstall, just like this. Alright, so this package has been installed. Alright, so now we have these 2 packages. Alright, so let me quickly close this, and since we have installed our AWS SDK version 2, this functions file has some errors because it says that this package is not available, not found. So let's quickly line and let's import the newly installed packages. Alright, so import S3 client from AWS S3, AWS SDK client S3, just like that, and import S3 request presigner, and it's from this package. Alright, and next let's first update our upload function. So let me rename this as client so that it makes more sense. Then we are creating a new instance of S3 client, just like this. We have to pass same credentials just like this as we did earlier, and we have to pass our region as well. For that, let's get that value from our config file. Instead of access key, it should be region. Yeah, just like that. And let me quickly remove these 2 code snippets. Instead, let's create a new constant. I'm gonna name that command should be equal to new put object command, and my IDE asking me which package to import. I'm just gonna select the first option, which is AWS SDK client S3. So here inside that we have to pass a few parameters. The first one is the bucket, which also comes from our parameters, which is the bucket name, just like that, and also then the file name, which is key. File name is this one. We are creating a new file name with timestamp, and lastly the file should be the body. The file comes as an argument, just like this. Alright, so this is the command that we need to create, which is put object command. Alright, so now we have to just return the result of client.send this function. We have to pass our command as an argument, just like this. Alright, so let's test this. Let me quickly open up my S3 bucket. So here we have already 3 files we have uploaded earlier to this particular bucket. Let's upload a new one. Let me open up our request in Postman. Here is the request, upload profile pic, and let me quickly delete this and reselect the file. Let me quickly start my application. npm run dev. It's giving me an error. Let me quickly go back to my code, and yeah, just like I guessed, since we installed our AWS V2 package, version 2 package, it's giving me this error for the second function. Yeah, let me quickly comment out these lines and let's try again. Now the application is started, but it's giving me an error because the database is not running. I mean, it's running on Docker. So let me quickly open it up and start Docker. Alright, so here in my Docker desktop, so we have this MongoDB image. I need to start it. Alright, so MongoDB is running. Now let's restart our application and it should be working fine. Yeah, listening and connected to DB. Alright, so let's open up Postman and hit this endpoint and let's see what happens. Alright. We have some error. Even though this is success, we have an error which is invalid argument type. Let me quickly go back to my code. Oops, I think I forgot to add this key, which is data, because we need to pass a buffer, an array buffer of the file, so that it can read the file content. Alright, so let me try it again. Send in the request. Yeah, I think we have a success. Yeah. Alright, so let me open up S3. Refresh it. Yes, now we have 4 files. Let me do it again. And yep, it's working. Alright, so that's how we can upload files to S3 Bucket using AWS SDK version 3. Alright, so now let's rewrite our presigned URL function as well with AWS S3 version 3. Alright guys, so first let me import few additional packages that we have to use to generate presigned URL. So first I'm going to import pass URL from Smithy /URL parser. This package automatically gets installed when you are installing AWS SDK version 3, so you don't have to separately install this. And next I'm going to import format URL, and that is from AWS SDK /util format URL. Lastly, I'm going to import hash. This is also from Smithy /hash node. So we import these 3 additional packages, but you don't have to install them manually. They are automatically installed. They are already installed on your system because you installed AWS SDK version 3. Alright, so let's go back to our function, and here let me delete this commented out code. I'm going to create a new constant. I'm going to name that URL. So here what we're going to do is we're going to construct the format of our presigned URL. To do that, I'm going to use this pass URL function comes with this package we just imported. Here I'm going to use this backtick symbol because it's easier for me to concatenate string and variables. Alright, so the first part of our URL is https / then we have to pass the bucket name. I'm going to use this $sign and curly braces syntax. You have to pass bucket name, and then we have to pass a string dot and S3, then again dot, then we have to pass the region of our bucket. We can get that from our configuration object, config dot aws dot region. Alright, then again we have to pass this string Amazon aws.com. Right. Lastly, we have to pass the file name, $, curly braces, and file name. So this is the format of our presigned URL. When we are generating the presigned URL, some other strings will be added, like query strings that contains all the authentication data. Alright, so this is the basic format of our presigned URL. Let me quickly double check with the AWS documentation. HTTPS bucket name and S3, then the region, again Amazon AWS.com, and then the file name. Perfect. Alright, so let me create another constant. I'm gonna name that S3 Presigner. So I'm going to create a new instance of S3 request presigner. So inside that we have to pass some credentials. So earlier we did the same in the other function. I'm gonna use this keys, this credential region and other credentials. I'm gonna pass them like this, and we have to pass one additional key, which is SHA256. We have to pass a hash for this. I'm gonna generate a hash with this hash package we just imported, and hash.bind. As the first argument we have to pass null, then the algorithm, which is SHA256. Yeah, you can find these code snippets in AWS documentation. Anyway, I'll attach that documentation in the description down below, so just in case you are confused. Alright, so we created this object, and then we have to call this presign function. Comes with our S3 presigner object we just created using S3 request presigner. Alright, so I'm going to use this await keyword, await S3 presigner dot presign. So in this function we have to pass a new HTTP request object as arguments. By the way, I forgot to mention that we need to import one other package, which is HTTP request, that also comes with this Smithy package. Import HTTP request from Smithy / protocol HTTP, just like this. Alright, so here we have to pass a new instance, new HTTP request. So as the options, I'm going to pass our URL we just constructed, this one. I'm going to use spread operator like this, and then we have to pass method, which is get. By the way, we can use presigned URLs to get objects and also update objects. So in this case, the operation we are going to do is get, just generate a presigned URL to view the file. So that's why we are using get. If we want to generate a URL to update an object, so in that case we have to use the method something like put or something. Alright, so we call this presigned function inside our presign object, and we have to get this return value to some constant. Let's say presigned URL object equals to the return value of this function. Alright, cool. Now one last step, we have to return this, but we have to format this URL using our format URL function. We just import it here, format URL, then presigned URL object, just like this. Alright, so let me double check with the documentation. We are constructing our URL like this, and we are creating this S3 presigner object with S3 request presigner. We pass region, then the credentials, and also this hash. Then we generate, we call this function presigned function, just like this, and we return this presigned URL object with this format URL. So let's test this with Postman. So this is our endpoint. Earlier we created this. Let's hit this endpoint and we get, oops, I think the file name I added here is incorrect. Let me quickly go back to S3 Bucket and grab a file name. Let me quickly refresh our bucket and let's get a file. Yes, we get a response and we generate a URL. Let me click this. Yes, I think we downloaded the file. Yes. Yes, files are getting downloaded. Yep. So it's working. So that's how you can generate presigned URL using AWS SDK version 3. Alright guys, so we learned how to upload files to AWS S3 Bucket using AWS SDK version 3, and also we learned how to generate presigned URL. So now why don't we learn how to delete a file from S3 Bucket? So let's write a function for that as well before winding up this video. Alright, so in our functions file, I'm just gonna copy this upload to S3 function, because this should be a lot similar to this upload to S3. Okay, I'm gonna rename this function. I'm gonna rename that delete from S3, and this should be file name and it should be string. Alright, so for the client, this should be the same because we are using S3 client here, and we don't need this new file name constant, and instead of put object command we have to import delete object command. There is another module called delete objects command, so you can delete multiple objects with that, but in this case we just stick with the single file deletion, so you can delete one file at a time. Alright, so instead of this put object command, I'm gonna type delete object command, and we don't need a body, and for the key we have to pass this existing file name. Yeah, that's it for this function. Yeah, let's create a request handler for that as well. I'm just going to copy this upload profile pic function. I'm gonna rename this let's say delete profile pic, and inside that we need to make sure the file name exists. So I'm gonna send the file name as a param. Alright, so the instead of files we have to add params, just like this, request params and the file name. So we will use this file name string in our out. Alright, so instead of upload to S3, let's say delete from S3. Just like this, let's pass the file name to that, and the status code should be 200 because we don't create a new record, we just delete it. Yeah, others should be same. We can pass the result of our function. Alright, so delete profile pic. I'm just gonna copy this function name and let's create a route for this really quick. Open up our routes file. Let me add another line of code, and instead of view file I'm just gonna delete profile pic function, and this should be a delete request. The URL should be same, files and the file name. Yeah, we are using file name here. Yeah, file name and the function. Alright, alright, so let's test this on Postman. Let me duplicate this get request. So instead of get, it should be delete, and the URL should be same. And let me open up my AWS S3 Bucket, and let's copy a file name here. Let me paste that. Alright, so moment of truth, let me send it. Yeah, we have a success. Let me open up our AWS S3 Bucket and hit refresh. Yes, now we have only 5 files. Earlier we had 6, now we have 5. Let me do it again and refresh this. Now we have only 4 files. So that's how you can delete files from your S3 bucket. So we rewrote all the functions, upload files function and view file functions, and also delete files function using AWS SDK version 3. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys very soon in the next video.